No one expected this. Not the timing, not the team, and definitely not the car. But Adrian Newey has returned. And he's building something terrifying at Aston Martin. For the first time in decades, he's not just designing a car, he's leading a team, shaping every decision, and rewriting the formula under his own rules. What's happening behind the gates in Silverstone isn't just fast. It's strategic. Because while Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes are focused on the usual threats, Newey's working in silence. With a brand new engine, full control, and a factory built around one goal. And when Adrian Newey has freedom, history shows only one thing. Everyone else is playing catch-up. The moment Adrian Newey walked into Aston Martin's Silverstone headquarters, everything changed. Not just for Aston, but for the entire grid. Because this wasn't just a high-profile signing. This was Formula One's most feared designer. A man who shaped every major era of modern F1. Being given total freedom, right as the sport enters a new regulatory cycle. The moment Adrian Newey walked into Aston Martin's Silverstone headquarters, everything changed. Not just for Aston, but for the entire grid. Because this wasn't just a high-profile signing. This was Formula One's most feared designer. A man who shaped every major era of modern F1. Being given total freedom, right as the sport enters a new regulatory cycle. And he didn't walk into chaos. Aston Martin has spent the last 2 seasons laying the foundation. New factory, new wind tunnel, expanded technical staff. But they were missing something. A direction. A leader. And Newey brought both. He's not working around existing systems. He's tearing them down and rebuilding them from the ground up. Starting with the AMR26. A car that isn't just optimized for the 2026 rules, but designed to make those rules irrelevant. That's always been Newey's genius, not playing within the framework, but redefining it. Inside the team, everything has shifted. Departments that once worked in sequence now work in parallel. The aerodynamic group no longer waits for the chassis team to finish. The suspension layout isn't adapted, it's integrated from day one. This is a level of cohesion few teams can afford, and even fewer can execute. It's not just about design. It's about culture. Newey's influence is everywhere, from how components are sourced, to how simulations are run, to how junior engineers are mentored. And that's what makes him so dangerous. Because he doesn't just improve performance. He accelerates the entire organization. So when rival teams say they're watching Aston closely, it's not because of the car they've seen. It's because of the one they haven't. The AMR26 is still hidden. But everyone in the paddock knows what Newey's cars do in year one. And if this is one of those cars, then everyone else may already be behind. What's slowly leaking out of Silverstone right now doesn't sound like early season optimism. It sounds like quiet confidence, the kind that makes rivals uneasy. The AMR26, Newey's first full car for Aston Martin, isn't just different on paper. Inside the simulator, according to multiple sources close to the program, it doesn't behave like anything the team has worked with before. The word that keeps coming up? Predictive. Test drivers are saying the car feels like it knows what it wants to do. Corner rotation is almost effortless. Entry and exit stability is balanced even in mixed grip conditions. And somehow, it maintains aero load under throttle without the usual mid-corner adjustment. That's not normal. Not this early in the development cycle. Especially not with new aero zones, new powertrain targets, and weight distribution regulations that have thrown off every major team. One engineer reportedly described the car's airflow as locked in. Another said, "It feels like it's already been through a season of refinement, but it hasn't." Which raises the obvious question. What has Newey already figured out? That the rest of the grid hasn't? Because the data doesn't lie. Wind tunnel reports, the ones that did leak, suggest a drag-to-downforce ratio well ahead of early 2026 targets. And the car's balance window under active aero changes? It's wider than expected, maybe too wide. And that's where the discomfort starts to build. Because this isn't just about speed. It's about control. And if Newey's car is already that composed in virtual testing, it means he's not reacting to the rules. He's ahead of them. The car is just the beginning. What's unfolding behind the scenes at Aston Martin is much more calculated and far more long-term. Because Adrian Newey hasn't just brought his design skills. He's brought his system, his process, his network, and now he's building it into the walls of Aston Martin. Over the last 18 months, the team has quietly recruited a group of specialists. Some of them ex-Red Bull, some from lesser-known technical suppliers. Not the big-name team principals or headline engineers, but the type of minds who shape airflow patterns, calibrate energy recovery systems, and manipulate compliance zones in suspension design. In other words, Newey's kind of people. And they're not just here for a season. They're being embedded into the structure, hired under long-term contracts, integrated into Newey's personal workflow, tied to the systems he's been perfecting for decades. This is the twist the rest of the grid hasn't fully seen yet. Everyone's watching the AMR26, the output. But the real threat is the machine Newey's building inside Aston Martin. A development loop that moves faster, reacts earlier, and can pivot between concepts in weeks instead of months. One team insider even said, Adrian doesn't need more time. He just needs less interference. And that's exactly what he's getting. No shareholder delays. No engine partner conflicts. No aerodynamic vetoes. For the first time since his early Red Bull years, he's being left alone to do what he does best. And if the car is already showing signs of something special, what happens when the structure beneath it starts to mature? That's what the other teams are just beginning to understand. Because while they're preparing for the season ahead, Newey is already laying the foundation for the next 3. This isn't just about aerodynamics, or engine packaging, or clever floor design. It's about what happens when power shifts, quietly, before anyone is ready. Because if the AMR26 is as effective as it appears to be, Aston Martin won't just rise in the standings. They'll start to pull the gravitational center of the sport toward themselves. And no one wants to say it publicly. But several teams are already bracing for the fallout. The driver market, for one, could implode. Because if this car is truly competitive, you can forget about Aston Martin being a one-driver team. Every top-tier name will be watching, especially those with exit clauses tied to performance. And that includes drivers under contract. People inside the paddock are already linking Newey's project to quiet approaches from agents representing proven champions. Not because they want to leave their teams, but because they can't afford not to have a seat ready if this thing is real. But the political consequences go further. Red Bull's internal structure, once bulletproof, is suddenly under scrutiny. Their engine partnership with Ford is untested. Newey is gone. And if Aston Martin's car starts beating them early, there's no way it doesn't trigger friction between departments. Why? Because the man they lost is now building the car they can't catch. Even at Ferrari and Mercedes, questions are growing. Is their technical direction too cautious? Are their design groups too fragmented to respond quickly? Because if Newey proves that one person, with control and clarity, can outdevelop an entire corporate structure, then it's not just a win for Aston Martin. It's a humiliation for everyone who told themselves that Newey's time had passed. And that's what no one's ready to admit. The fear isn't about this car being fast. It's about what it would mean if it is. If Aston Martin delivers, if this car even approaches the level insiders are whispering about, the balance of power in Formula One doesn't just shift, it breaks. Because what Newey is doing here isn't temporary. This is a structural move. A reshaping of how F1 success is built, not by committee, not by legacy, but by clarity of vision. And once that starts working, the damage to other teams becomes permanent. Mercedes, still struggling to unify its design language post-2022, is watching its core philosophy erode. Ferrari has the firepower but not the cohesion. And a single dominant Aston Martin could expose just how fragile that operation really is. Red Bull? They're walking a tightrope. They've lost Newey. They've lost continuity. And if Aston Martin starts winning with a Honda engine, after Red Bull walked away from that partnership, the irony alone would be enough to fracture confidence inside their camp. Sponsors will shift. Driver agents will activate exit clauses. And key technical staff, the ones who've been quietly sitting still for 2 or 3 seasons, will start taking calls again. Because Newey doesn't just attract talent. He dislodges it. He creates movement where there was once stability. And for a sport this delicate, one team gaining momentum doesn't just make others nervous. It forces them to act. Some will double down. Some will panic. Some may even collapse under the pressure of trying to copy something they don't fully understand. Because you can imitate a concept. You can even poach a few engineers. But you can't clone Adrian Newey's mind. And if Aston Martin's system starts working the way it appears to be, they won't just win races. They'll rewrite the map. So now, everything depends on a car no one has truly seen. No official data. No lap times. No trackside photos. Just whispers, and one undeniable truth. When Adrian Newey works in silence, he's never just building a car. He's building a problem the rest of the grid can't solve. And this time, he's doing it with no limits. No legacy systems. No executive interference. Just a team that believes in him. And a structure built entirely around his way of thinking. The fear isn't about Barcelona. It's not even about round 1. It's about the idea that by the time everyone figures out what Newey's built, it'll already be too late. Because if the AMR26 is as fast as it looks in simulation, or worse, faster, Aston Martin won't just start strong. They'll set a new direction for the entire sport. And right now, inside every top team, engineers are scrambling for answers they don't have, and preparing responses to a threat they still don't understand. The scariest part? This may not even be Newey's final form. This could just be the first chapter of something even more dangerous.